Another thing we have to deal with when it comes to passwords in our Microsoft 365 environment is password lockout. Okay, so password lockout is going to involve a user getting their passwords locked, getting their accounts locked due to various reasons. And this is something that isn't really new in terms of dealing with user accounts. Again, this is another thing that we've had for decades and decades when it comes to dealing with accounts. And of course, Microsoft 365 and Azure AD has their own ways of handling all this, and it's actually pretty simplistic. Although I will say again that if you did synchronize your on-premise Active Directory using Azure AD Connect, then at that point, if you're synchronizing all of that, then the on-prem domain is going to control those accounts and the lockout policies. But your cloud accounts or cloud-based accounts, or if you aren't syncing on-premise Active Directory, then you're gonna control all of this through your portal here. So we're going to be taking a look at that in just a second. So it's going to be managed through the Azure portal. There is a couple things there. There is the account lockout threshold. And the account lockout threshold, I like to call this the strike counter. So you get a certain amount of strikes and then you are locked out. Okay, so I can set that to 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever, however many you want attempts, or how many strikes you want to give your identities before they get locked out. And then you have the duration. Of course, the duration is the amount of time that you're going to be locked out. So the threshold is the amount of strikes. The duration is the amount of time that an object is going to be locked out if that threshold is reached. Okay, now what are some of the common reasons for this happening? Okay, one reason would be the user just locked themselves out. This can be fat finger in the password a few times. This could be user forgot their password. Okay. Another thing would be if you have an application or a service that is using your account. So one of the things you might recall me saying in an earlier video is that with identities, we can have identities that services are using. So different services that are logging on and accessing cloud-based resources. If a password was to get altered and a service was using that account, a service will keep attempting to connect in, and of course it can lock your account out. Okay, another reason would be situations where you've got maybe you've changed your password in a new environment, and you haven't properly had things synchronized between an old environment and a new environment. And again, that's going to go back into things like on-prem Active Directory and the fact that you can have multiple domains, you can have multiple forests, and you've set synchronization up and you've altered things, and things aren't quite properly synchronized. One example of this too is like with Azure AD Connect. When you connect your on-prem Active Directory with the cloud, what can happen is you have to have a user account that's doing the synchronization between the on-prem and the Microsoft Azure AD environment. Well, of course, if that account's password was to get changed, the cloud doesn't know about it, and now things aren't synchronizing. This is going to throw a lot of things out of whack. Your on-prem accounts are no longer going to be synchronizing to the cloud. And of course, one of the great things that you do have in Azure AD Connect is you have the ability to monitor the health of your synchronization. So this is something that you can watch for. You can also have alerts that are set up, and that way there is a way for you to always keep an eye on this particular problem.